What's going on, Workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And if you guys haven't seen, we've got brand new emotes, Lunar Whale, Reaper emotes, and even coming soon, Sage. So for all of our supporters over on Twitch, and even here on Work the Game, if you're a part of the membership, should show up with the names. Thank you guys so much for your support. We're trying to find fun and awesome ways that you can kind of take that and have some fun with it. So hopefully you enjoy the new ones. We've been having lots of funs with memes. Links are all in the description if you guys want to check out any of other content. But today, the reason probably you came to this video is what would we do to solve the problem with relics? How would we take these things, these epic quest weapons, and just evolve them from the glamour that they ultimately become? They feel like they have a very small window of like just power and like wow, and then eventually, oh, that looks really cool, I can't wait for the next glamour grind in that regards. Now obviously the changes that we're probably going to be suggesting and discussing are just our opinions, and at the core of it, probably very difficult to do in the game. Let's not sit here and assume that there's a button that Yoshi P would come and press and say, "Oh,
Sure.
now they're amazing." But these are just kind of our thoughts, the things that we've been kind of talking about on stream back and forth pretty heavily, and so we thought we'd just kind of condense it to a video for you guys. So, Chris, floor is yours. What would you change to the relic system at its foundation?
So I think the first thing you need to do is you need to test it. So we test battle classes with things like Deep Dungeon and with zones like Eureka and the Bosnian Southern Front. And we test them by putting them in an isolated area where we can make a bunch of changes to them through things like effectively limited job style changes where they can be brokenly overpowered with lost actions and all that. And then we can learn, okay, well, how would I tune that down to let it into the rest of the game? And if it doesn't turn out in a way that looks like it can, either because players don't want it or because they don't actually like what it does as far as balance and all that, they can go, oh, just kidding, and it dies in its little vacuum. And so any power that we associate with previous relic grinds, Eureka, Deep Dungeon, any of that, anything where a particular class felt too strong, too weak, none of that matters. It's all the way over here. And so the first thing I would do is I would say that next expansion, like what I would do, if unlimited resources and dollars and all things are easy and instantly with a snap of a button,
Done.
is I would make permanent changes to the Skysteel tools.
Oh yeah?
It's a relic system that does not affect Savage. It does not affect Ultimate. It does not matter. And so I would say that each Skysteel tool that you unlock kind of allows you to go on a quest where you can gain a permanent character-wide trait associated with that, where you can have things like when you fail, you have a percent chance of retaining your materials. When you complete a craft successfully, you have a percent chance of not using the crystals, clusters, all of that mess. You have percent chances of things like when you make when it makes like 3 of a potion, maybe it has a percent chance of making 4. I would go in and say, like, let's give this something really truly special that just breaks things. The economy is already not something they balance for or seem to care about, so screw it, let's do it, let's just lean into it. And so I would say I would love to see Skysteel tools have something where after 6.0 going into 7.0, you're like, yeah, but did you get your 6.0 Skysteel tool? Those things are pivotal. It's like, what? And you could tie a different elemental cluster behind each one. So you've got 8 of them. So what are 8 traits that we could do that would advance overall crafting? So you're back to being benefited for being an omni crafter, but like not in a way where you ever have to do it. It doesn't make the crafts easier. It just changes the outcome when you complete or fail a craft or something like that.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna actually, I have a couple ideas, and I want to just kind of jump ahead of the critique of these ideas, because easily there people are going to be like, but what about Savage? But what about etc.?
Sure.
What I'm about to suggest essentially would not have an impact on those types of content, Savage and Ultimate. Meaning, I would say that relic gear for weapons should have a perk, a unique perk that kind of benefits your job in a unique way. And those weapons should level up. Meaning, you can actually take a relic from ARR, have it have a perk, and that weapon can level up until it's the same eye level as whatever the tier, that you want the relic system to be on, which currently is trending behind. It's kind of gap weapon content until it's not, right? So it could still exist to where ARR's relic could only level up via experience, like we talked about earlier in our video, Paragon system. But the reason why you might want to go get the AR relic is because that perk. And so every time a new expansion is they're introducing a unique trait to a weapon that then has that carries forward, and thus, changes
Can I
the way you
merge
play.
the relics to have more than one trait going?
No, you cannot. So it would literally be where, like, you can equip that weapon, you could keep that weapon. We're getting more weapon slots, but why? Like, you could end up having these weapons that are also a leveling system in and of themselves, and then each one has their own special trait that kind of makes them unique in a way. And then that trait does not work in Savage. That trait does not work in Ultimate. Therefore, it's not a weapon that is required for doing the hardest content.
Normals?
Yeah, it would work in normals. Yeah, you could be a complete badass and just crush.
So if Atma's across the board add res,
yeah,
then if you choose to have the Atma equipped, any job in the game has a res.
Correct.
It's a lost action.
It's
a lost action weapon.
Yeah, but here's where I guess fun though. But it's that the trait would actually be beneficial to your class, right? So it'd be something that would probably enhance it. So it's not a skill, it's not a resurrection in this regards, but it's a passive trait that essentially is just like, hey, did you know that it just changes you up slightly? And then we could imagine all day what would those traits look like in that regards. But essentially, yes, maybe there's a trait that would allow you to carry use a Phoenix down in battle, right? So then you take already existing things, but it has a long cooldown or something like that. And again, in normal content and normal raid, who cares? There's nobody, like, no one's racing for that. There's no official like thing on that regards. It would just be something. And then you compete and you balance very few weapons, right? Because we've only had the ARR, Heaven's Word, Stormblood, Shadowbringers,
Sure.
and then essentially Endwalker. So you're really talking about how, like, balancing the traits against themselves, so it becomes an easier mathematical solution rather than adding in traits to all kinds of weapons, right? Like, one of the things I would love to see, and I'm actually really excited for New World in its regards, is that you can add all kinds of traits to the weapons themselves. That's a balancing nightmare if you would try to copy and paste that into 14.
Yeah, Diablo had some way back in the day. Diablo 2, you could add skills to other classes. That's how you came up with Hammerden type builds and all that. Mm-hmm. You could break things due to equipment.
Right.
So to take that into a third thing.
Okay.
What if with it equipped? What if it had a cosmetic change? What if your spells could, or your abilities could take on a different animation? Mm-hmm. That was equipable. So what if your black mage, your Enochian lasts longer or whatever, and then it makes your ley lines like purple. Oh, and dude. so even in the Savage, you can take your cosmetic with you.
Yeah.
And so when you see somebody with purple, you're like, dude, they have the Atma black mage weapon. How do you know that? It's like, because they got the purple ley lines.
It goes hand in hand too with two things though, right? Because that also means that they've taken that weapon and then they've grinded that weapon to get it to cap.
To relevance.
Right, to relevance. And that would be, I would say, experience and feeding it whatever. But again...
Like Chobo, you may have to feed it Favnarian onions of poetics.
To get it to...
And so you've got to keep unlocking its ability to go to the next range of 10 levels.
Yeah.
And each time it takes 2,000 poetics.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the other issues is mm-hmm. Can a change like this create a value for these currencies that just pile up? Yeah. Where my allegory and my poetics are at cap like all the time. Right now, the only reason mine are both not at cap is because I just spent a ton of poetics gearing out my blue mage.
Yeah.
That's it. And now that's done, back to cap we go.
Right. And so
I'll be there in a week or two.
I'll see you guys in a little bit. So the core of it, like, that's the idea I've been just wanting to see. Something that takes that weapon, keeps it relevant, and then it'll have times where it just shines as the best weapon there. So it's a weapon that has a perk that is only available in certain content, and then non-progression content. Otherwise, it runs the risk of being required. And then in that in the regular content, it's not always going to be the best either, because until the end of the expansion does it actually fulfill and then becomes relevant again. So it still acts as that gear
keep it at Tomestone level or something like that. Keep it at 5, so right now it'd be at 520, which is where the Revelation tomes get us.
And then essentially by the end of the expansion, before going into the next, that's when it releases that last cap. And then I agree with you. Like, having these kind of tiers has a bigger cost to kind of break through it. So they're still a grind. They're their own leveling system. They're a but being how long they take you to get, you can decide if it's worth to go and get that grind for that weapon, which actually gets a little bit easier. So by the time like you're going to try and collect the older ones, you're not going through the original grind that everybody else went through. You're going through kind of a sped up process, but then you go get that weapon it then has that trait, and then essentially you're like, wow, I really like this one, and then you could kind of...
but you could power level it with things like Wondrous Tales. Because because right now, things like Wondrous Tales, things like Leave Quests, things like Hunts, if you do them on a level capped class, your experience doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
But what you do is right before you turn them in, or when you're in synced content at all, where it doesn't matter what your gear level is, you equip that weapon, you go charge through Bozja for an afternoon. And yes, my black man, my paladin's at cap, but my paladin Atma weapon would not be at cap, and so it would be synced at 430, and then I would be continuing defeated experience. And so then down in my battle log, it wouldn't say nothing. Right. It wouldn't just be this void of just shooting experience off into nothingness while other people in my party got experience. I would be getting experience towards my relic.
So that's it'd
be a nice way of containing it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And the nice thing is, if you think it breaks normal content, you say it's not allowed in expert roulettes anymore, guys. You couldn't be trusted with it. Like, okay, it's not allowed in the current 4 tiers of raids. Like, you can call them. I mean, they'd probably have to call them like limited weapons. So like, and there'd be, and so down at the bottom it would say like, here are your stats, and it's just a normal weapon. And down here it would say, the following effect is only in effect during just like the Bozjan gear. Yeah. That haste edition, it is normal gear outside of that. It's normal 510 gear. But then below that it says you get haste, but that haste is only effective in the following zones.
Yeah, 100%.
And so you could say, you know what, you want to go fate grind and have purple ley lines and giant internal Enochians that cause triple explosions. Knock yourselves out. Like, we don't care. But like, you could, that would be something unique to each one. I don't know. That sounds fun.
It does.
I think they would have to start with something more isolated. They would have to start with something and see that it doesn't break anything. So start with something small. Start with like either a change to Skysteel or a change to cosmetics, or making them able to be leveled up and relevant so that I can have not just as a glamour, but I can have outside that exact weapon. Yeah. When somebody expects me, they're like, Zenith, what the heck is Zenith? What? Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, that's just a really old weapon.
Yeah. And I've leveled it up, and it's powerful and it's enjoyable in that regards. Obviously, that work would take even still quite a bit. But my thought was like, how could you introduce?
This is all impossible.
Yeah. How? Well,
we just spent tens of millions of dollars and eternally months of development.
Yeah,
time.
24 months at a minimum of their time. Sorry that the expansion got delayed, everybody. Anyway, that's
we'll sit another 2 years until Endwalker releases, because we're gonna try this out.
We're gonna do that. It worked the game. They figured it out. I don't know. I was just trying to think of it like an interesting way from to have some form of build diversity, but while respecting what people really try to cherish and protect in this game, and at the same time giving you a reason to kind of go back and fulfill it, and then also a reason going forward, because that weapon would be upgradable. That weapon has a trait that you might want to have at some point, and therefore it's not just glamour anymore. It actually,
if you guys have not played with Ultra Vibration on a blue mage, then maybe it doesn't mean anything. But I can tell you right now, I want a personal limit break that I can only use when I'm out in the world. Mm-hmm. That way, when I'm completing dailies, I can just, like, I'm already killing the mob in 3 shots. Just let me blow it to ridiculous smithereens. Let me have a Final Fantasy X summon for no reason. A 30-second animation of awesome, and a dragon comes out and just obliterates whatever, like, one world mob I'm killing. That's what Blue Mage makes me want.
Absolutely. Well, guys, let us know your thoughts on these ideas. If you've got your own ideas, we'd love to hear them, so sound off in the comments below. Chris, you got any final thoughts before we wrap today's video?
No, come hang out with us on stream.
All right, guys. If you're watching this Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock Central, Chris is live, mostly with 14, and then Fridays is a random day. WoW and Guild Wars 2. So be sure to go check that out. Check out your new emotes. If you got your emotes here as a member, you can always actually leave them in comments. YouTube, slow to play the game. They're figuring it out. By the time 2030 rolls around, they might actually kind of understand what streaming and membership means. Who knows? Anyway,
first
guys,
platform to virtuality. You can do it, guys.
Let's go. Let's do it. All right, guys. For Work to Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll hope to see you soon. But until then,
take care.